The protagonist of Jax had kind of come to me in such a visceral sense. So I just kind of wrote out in this journal this giant kind of prose spew. I didn't try and put it in script format, I just let it out. I wanted to kind of like know what this story was and know where she was taking me. And I kind of call a bit of this process like putting sand in the sandbox, where it's sort of like, the more sand I can shove into the sandbox, the more that then I can like mold a sand castle. Exposure is a 6x30 hour mystery thriller series for Stan, and it is about a young woman who something very tragic happens to her best friend, and she throws herself out as bait as a means to find out what happened to her.
In the process of dealing with her grief, she becomes kind of consumed with this idea that something's happened to Kel at the hands of a man. In pursuit of kind of trying to work out who this man is and what he's done, it ultimately leads Jax to uncover something about herself.
The inspiration for Exposure really came from a thematic push-pull that I was wanting to explore. It really kind of came first that it was these maladaptive behaviours of this protagonist, this obsession with men and this vehement rage against them as well, that was this very grey, sticky, complicated, messy place. And to me, that is the most interesting terrain when something isn't kind of one note, but when you've kind of got these colliding forces happening within a character. I think that there's so much power in being able to tell stories in that space and connect with your audience and give somebody else the chance to be able to feel seen in their own kind of complicated, messy space.
Crying's good. It's like an aphrodisiac.
No, it's not. Something that really interested me in the series was this idea of memory and these kind of memories resurfacing in our character. And I think what I really wanted to do with the visual world was build a kind of landscape out of our locations of spaces that were really tied to this idea of memory and the past and history. And I think for me, Port Kembla just really felt like it worked within that idea. It feels kind of very otherworldly there and like somewhere I'd not really seen on screen before. Part of the story takes place in Bali as kind of mini DV camcorder flashback memories that are repeated throughout the series. And this required obviously a cast to be in Bali. However, we weren't quite able to do that, so we needed to recreate Bali in Sydney, which we did in a kind of music venue, actually that we used for the opening of the series, which is the kind of club that is in Sydney, that then over lunchtime was transformed into a Bali nightclub.
It is sort of slightly unusual, I guess, to have the mystery thriller drama in a half-hour format as opposed to 1 hour, but I find that the half-hour space is kind of slightly more experimental, and to me, Exposure wasn't your kind of typical hour prestige drama thriller, and yeah, I just think there's kind of really interesting work being done in that half-hour format.
So the series for me is quite unique in that it is told from a singular perspective. It's very much from Jax's point of view. This allowed myself and cinematographer Aaron McCliskey to really kind of develop a cinematic language that was very much tethered to character, tethered to Jax and her perspective. I think that aspect ratio, which is 1:37:1, felt kind of right because we're seeing the world through Jax's lens, which is a photographer's lens. She's an artist, she's a photographer. She's seeing the world in this way, and the aspect ratio felt quite photographic to us.
What I hope audiences take away, and especially its female audience, is a chance to feel seen. Sometimes sitting with someone in their darkest moment and feeling seen is just such a true point of connection. So that's kind of what I really hope is the takeaway for Exposure, is that both men, women, that people can watch this show, but especially the young female audience can feel seen in Jax and her experience in this world, and it helps them not feel so alone in that.